Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Done Dissertation Office Hours. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that you, the doctoral student, can write and defend your dissertation in 1 year or less. In this episode of Done Dissertation Office Hours, I want you to talk to someone who has developed a college consulting and college going business and learn about his journey to entrepreneurship, his journey through education and earning his doctorate. There's going to be so many gems in this episode you all definitely don't want to miss. And also, this episode of Done Dissertation Office Hours is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It's a 4-month coaching experience designed to help propel you to write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final dissertation in the next 4 months. If you're interested in finishing your dissertation quickly and are tired of being stuck, I want you to visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about the program. And as I mentioned, today's episode, I want to talk to someone who has developed a business around helping students get to college. And what I think is very unique about our guest, Dr. Christopher Vick, is just a unique journey to earning his doctorate and then all the professional aspects he has incorporated into his career since. So I want to give a very special introduction and give a warm welcome to our guest, Dr. Christopher Vick. Dr. Vick, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Dr. Goins. How are you this afternoon? It's
Good,
wonderful to
good,
see you.
good to see you as well. So first, I want to say
Yes,
thank
sir.
you so much for being with us on this episode. So
Absolutely.
as you know, we always start these episodes. A lot of folks see the final result. They see the doctor that you finished and did all these things now. But let's go backwards a little bit. Did you always have a vision of earning your doctorate? Was it something you thought about as when you were younger, going through education, or is this something that you learned and thought about later in life?
That's a really fun question. I always say professionally, I'm a dog chasing cars. I've never known where my career was going to kind of go, and I've never been smart enough to kind of shape it. And I think I'm kind of getting to a season where I need to kind of rethink that mantra in some significant ways. So I kind of say it's really both. So I grew up in Baltimore, Northeast Baltimore City. And for me, going to college was always an expectation. My family was always like, dude, you have to go to college, right? My mom's a social worker. Dad's a welder. We did okay, but it was like, if you want to have a good standard of living, you've got to go to college. So that was always in my mind. But going to get a doctorate, I knew that I had a village of folks that poured into me. And from the time I was relatively young, told me I'm smart. And as a result, that felt inevitable. It kind of felt like I had to do that. I had to go get a doctorate because like, that's what smart people did, air quotes. But I'll say it's not something I did thoughtfully. It's something I did in a really reactive way. So I was like, all right, I'm in high school and I'm doing this thing because my parents make me. And I did enough in high school to kind of keep them off my back by and large. Um, and I kind of figured out kind of how to be a student in undergrad. And I think at each successive point in my life, I figured out a little bit more about how to be a student. And even still, even in doing my master's, like I guess I'll do a doctorate, but I never felt particularly attached to any course of study or any research topic. I just kind of did it because I guess it's a cool title. I like being called doctor. And I guess I'll make more money. But I never really had a thought beyond just that in terms of the greater good or why I should get a doctorate. I just kind of did it because it felt like the thing to do.
Ooh, sorry, I know some of my audio. Sorry about that. So the question
It's
was,
all good.
as you were navigating your journey, what were you doing professionally at the time prior to earning your doctorate? And then did that push
Yeah.
you possibly to consider as well?
Yeah. So I finished my doctorate. I was 29, I guess. And the benefit, I was at least just where I was in my life, right? I don't think I had kids. I didn't have any kids. I'm still single. I was like, well, I don't have anything else personally going on. So let me go ahead and knock this thing out.
Sure.
Um, what was I doing professionally? I was working in Brookline, which is a little bedroom community right outside of Boston. And I had the privilege of leading a program called the African American Latino Scholars Program. And what it was if you could have designed a professional experience for where I was professor at the time that aligned perfectly, it was that. I mean, I got a chance to teach a cohort of about 100 students, African American Latino. We did college advising, college success work, and I taught African American Latino history. And I had the joy of teaching what I wanted to teach. So like I got to say, all right, this is what's going in the news. Like it's the anniversary of the MOVE bombing. Great, we're going to spend a week on that. So it was just so much joy in my professional life.
Yeah.
And I think I was able to kind of flow in my professional life. I had a lot of space in my academic life. So I was just kind of going on being a teacher, and I never had a bigger thought around what this thing is going to enable for me. It's just going to enable me to make more money, and I can go and make reservations at restaurants, say Dr. Christopher Vick, and that's going to be
Sure.
kind of the deal. So that's kind of where I was, and even after taking my doctorate or earning my doctorate, whatever, I was in that position for like another 3 or 4 years before moving back home to Baltimore or DC, I guess, to become a college counselor. So it's been kind of a bit of a journey. It's been a journey.
Yeah, so talk a bit about your experience. You go into your doc program. What was it like being someone teaching and trying to finish getting the doctoral program and navigate that process? I'm assuming working full time, going to school full time. So what was
Yes.
that like for you, and how did you do it?
I am so if you were standing next to me, folks, you would see I'm about 6 foot tall, about 190 pounds. And when I talk to students, I always say that if you look at me, I break down all the stereotypes about Black men and athletics. I have no athletic ability
Right.
whatsoever, right? But school has always been my place where I'm competitive. Like it's the place where even if that person doesn't know they're competing with me, I'm competing with you. So it was two things that supported me in getting through my dissertation, my doctorate. One, I started the cohort with a really, really good friend of mine. He's still a really good brother of mine. And we just held each other through the whole process. He had some personal stuff going on. His family was expanding. I had some personal stuff going on. I was working through, and we just really support each other in a way that we saw each other. And we really had a lot of demographic things in common. So we saw each other and we could kind of hold each other to standard in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we could be vulnerable with each other, meaning like, when comps time came around and we're like, yo, I'm having a little bit of identity or a little bit of what's what I'm looking for. I feel like a little bit of imposter, and I
Yeah.
made it this far. I don't know if I can make it through. He would look me in the eye, look him in the eye, be like, boy, we made it this far. We got to keep rolling. So that's a piece of the other piece. And I mentioned the athletic piece is I am super academically competitive. And again, even folks don't even know they're competing with me. I need something to get my fire going. It's just a part
Yeah.
of me. So I looked around the room and I just kind of said, all these folks are going to get their doctorate in May 2009. Is everybody in this room smarter than you are? Like they
Mm.
can't be. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that's psychologically healthy, but but that's what it took to get me started. And I applied that approach through the entire process. So when I was thinking about who was going to be on my dissertation chair or going to be on my committee, I said, I want the most, and this, I don't know if this is my 29-year-old ego saying, like, I want the most difficult readers, right? I want to know that I went
Wow.
through
You're definitely
BC
different than
and
most
I
people.
listen, I got a lot of weird things. So I just got to get through this, and I'll know that I'm not paper. I did it the hard way,
Yeah.
and that was just proving something to myself. So in that way, it was it. But again, like I recognize that I was very much privileged in that I could go through my dissertation and not have a lot of family constraints. Right?
Yeah.
My job. I've been in the job for a few years. I was kind of in the pocket, so I could really do the job. Heck, I've been gone for a few
Autopilot.
years, so I can say bang. And if I couldn't serve my students, then I'd be like, I this ain't the right thing. And I was talking about one of the things that was so powerful. I think, and I'm thinking about it now, and I hadn't thought about this in over 10 years, but I hope my students were going through the process with me. So as I
Mm.
told them, like, yo, hey, I got this paper, and I'm gonna be a day slow getting things back. I think my students saw like, oh shucks, like that, Chris is going through this as well. So I got to keep going. Like if I can't stop, y'all can't stop either. And I think as I reflect on it, I felt a sense of responsibility to my students, particularly as a young man of color in a school that was majority white, to like hold up a standard, to tell my kids like, yo, you are amazing. I want you to be even better than me. But I've got to blaze this path for you. I think that really helped me a lot as well.
No, that's really a great couple of things that you said. One that stood out was just the idea you had somebody that was with you along the journey, a classmate. Like for
Yes,
mine, Dr.
yes.
Larry Walker, we found each other during orientation at Morgan State and was like, "Hey man, you gonna finish this up?" I said, "Yeah,
Mhm.
let's just stick together." And we did that. Read each other's papers, the
Yes,
whole even
yes,
entire dissertations we read. So that was important. I think that piece for a lot of students that don't have that camaraderie with at least one person. You got to
yes,
create that,
yes.
or else it's really lonely to get through this thing.
You won't.
Yeah.
Or at least how I experience so little silly stuff. I am the worst with APA format and like citations, like stuff like that. Footnotes,
Yeah.
forget about it. Brothers are like, yo, are you working with EndNote? I'm like, no. And we're building each other's libraries,
Yeah.
our bibliographies, like little stuff like that was so powerful. So just the technical piece but the affective, like, you can do this, was every bit as important. I'll tell the story. It's not my story to tell, but I'll tell it. Good brother of mine, he's going through the program. We had a 10-page paper for ed law due that night, and it lost his computer. He lost it. And it was one of those moments. He just had a new baby. He was like, I don't know if I can get through this.
Yeah.
And we just sat, we talked it out, and he was able to keep it going. But it was a bunch of those moments where you're kind of like, I don't know if I can handle this. And we all held each other and said, like, it's not for me. It's about all of us and what we're going to do with these doctorates. That's going to be powerful.
No, I love that. And so as you progress to your program, you get ready for your dissertation. Talk a bit
Yes.
about your dissertation. What was it about, and what made you actually want to study what you studied?
So I don't know if there's a right answer, but I'll give you the real answer.
Yeah.
So I studied what I was interested in at the time. So at the time, I was doing a lot of work around parental engagement, supporting parents through the transition to high school was what I ended up researching. And it was great, right? I had access to a parent cohort. I met with them almost every other week. So it would be super easy to study them. So I figure, it's a group I have at hand. It'll be relatively easy. My philosophy was, the best dissertation is a done one. You're not getting style points. So, like, get this ridiculous thing done. And I think I have two minds about it now. So yes, I'm done. Great, right? But at 41, I'd have been done anyway. So part of me is asking, well, what was your rush? There's a myriad of reasons why I was in a rush then. And I say that because I think I experienced some pretty significant misalignment between what I was interested in then and what I'm interested in now. So as a person and all of our interests are going to be different, but at 29, my research, my academic interests are markedly different than they are now at 41. So, like, I tell folks, yeah, I did this dissertation. It was cool. And I learned a lot about parental engagement, which was dope, but I don't use it that much. So it's kind of like, I use it now. I don't know if it's a good analogy, but it's like an old outfit. It was great in the 90s, but like in 2022, I don't know if that outfit fits me the same anymore. So if I could have done it over again, I would have been less expeditious about just getting the thing done and more thoughtful about, like, okay, Chris, what's the body of work that you'll be able to use moving forward? And again, at 29, I'm a fundamentally different person I was even now at 41.
Yeah.
But my hope is that everything I do moving forward professionally will align much closer. And I realized I had that great opportunity at BC, and I was kind of just not getting paid, but I had that time to kind of kick around and investigate something. I would have hoped moving forward to be something that would have been longer lasting for me.
Yeah, and I know you're probably thinking about it and not using that work right now. But if you think about, and we're going to talk a bit about your business side in terms of your college consulting, your parental engagement piece actually comes back. I don't know if you've looked at it like that, but I think the skill and the research that you've done then has looped back around now, just in a different way. So sometimes we got to think about, as our careers progress, is like, maybe what I was doing is just a foundation for what I'm going to do later. Like, for me, doing Done Dissertation, I didn't research this for my dissertation. It just kind of grew from doing the work on Black male student success, and then it kind of, rolling in that way. And so with that, I know you have your business, A2Z College Consulting. So can you talk a bit about how that was born and what that process was to even come up with the idea, like, to help students get into college?
If you give me a second, I will. As usual, you give me a jewel to kind of snack on and chew on. For the past 12 years, I've been like self-flagellating, like, why didn't I do the blah, blah, blah? Now I'm having a different perspective, even now in the moment. So I appreciate that. Give me a second to pull back.
No problem. Yeah.
So A2Z, so my daughters Amina and Zora, A2Z is born out of my experiences in Boston. So when I was in Boston, it was the first time I saw kind of behind the kitchen of student experiences, meaning, like, I've been a student, okay, fine. And I knew there were aggressive inequalities, but I wasn't really clear on what some of those things are that feed into so many inequalities. I wasn't really clear on why certain students had the advantages that they had. Like, I knew the SAT was a ridiculous test, and I knew it advantaged certain kids over other ones, but I didn't know just how tightly that SAT was correlated with things like income, right? To advantage certain students over other ones. So as I'm working with students, I'm doing college access work. I'm just doing low-key college essay work. I'm like, why is it my students are coming in with less stuff? Why is it they have less college knowledge? They might be waiting longer to get their essays done? Why is it they don't know who to ask for recommendations? And obviously, it's not that my students were dumber or less. That's ridiculous. We know that, but yet still their college acceptances were lagging, and it wasn't that they weren't as intelligent. They just didn't have that extra thing. And what I learned from conversations is that there were whole networks of advisors that our students were being not getting access to, and that our students were trying to do it on themselves. Or in Boston, they have the Copley Library. It's a really dope resource that where students can get college help, but it gets busy. And I'm kind of looking around like, why is it that certain kids who are just as brilliant aren't accessing these colleges at the same rate? It has nothing to do with intelligence. It's just support. So I talked to some other people. I talked to my college coach people, and they kind of let me in behind the kids, and they let me know that a lot of folks are engaging college coaches. I think with the awfulness of varsity blues and all that kind of stuff, that there's a lot of misinformation about what college coaches do. There's this idea taken to the extreme that they get you into college, all that stuff. Like, no, that's not what it is. Or that's not what I do. I kind of view it as, my role is to even the playing field and help students that I work with package themselves in the greatest degree possible. So I work with students, and it makes me wild. I work with a kid. I'm like, all right, let's start writing your essay. I'm like, what's unique about you? And the child is like, well, nothing. And then you'll talk to the advisor like, oh yeah, that child is raising their two siblings, and they've been working since they were in 8th grade. And it's like describing water to a fish. So I would say that my job is to make the implicit explicit. And I shine diamonds, right? My job is to help a student take those things about themselves that are incredible and surface them, so the admissions folks don't have to dive down to figure out what's amazing about you. So they can just make it quick. So they can make their few minutes or even seconds with the admissions counselor count. And I guess, again, it's the competitive part of me. I was just like,
yeah.
Society will tell you if you're not really careful. My mom has a phrase. She says, the white man's ice is not colder. And it took me a while to understand. I was like, what's that mean? And what she was really helping me understand is that systems of power that you don't see can be really, really pernicious. And college admissions was one of those phenomenal examples of so many kids getting help and then kind of like, oh, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you not getting in? And that felt like a wrong for me. It felt like an absolute wrong for me. And being mindful that I think this information happens in like PTO meetings and in certain conversations, but like for our students, particularly first generation students of color, like we're just not part of those networks. And that felt wrong to me. And because college is such a level, I don't know the right word, because college levels the playing field, that just felt wrong. So I think of this work as social justice work.
Yeah. And so with that, can we talk a bit about from the student side first? And I want to go to the parents second, but from the student side, what do you see like the mistakes that students are making in this college going process? So like, or even right now, just to be more specific, like on the essay, let's say that's a big piece where I know students probably would struggle. So what do you see from your perspective, having coached, students and families on the college, essay?
The topic matter. The topic makes zero difference. Like students get so wrapped up, and I have to write the perfect topic. No, you don't, because like no topic is original. So unless they have like had some really extreme circumstance, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you want to phrase it, you're not going to come up with a topic that the admissions person hasn't seen. So release that tension and let it go. And that's fine, right? So there's 3 phases of your essay. There's the what, that's your topic, it's the least important. There's the so what did you learn from this thing? And you're now what are you going to do with it? Most students kind of stop with the what. If they're lucky, they'll spend a little bit of time in the so what and not too much in the now what. So I endeavor to help folks align, as my word of the day apparently. I endeavor to help students align who they are, their interests in the essay. It should all come through for the counselor. I want the counselor to be like, this is the kid who blah. Like there should be a powerful term after reading your essay, and letting students know that like you're not going to, unless it's an extreme case, you're not going to write yourself into college. So I think oftentimes students think this is their lottery ticket. It's not. Like if you have a garbage GPA, a garbage profile, this is not going to get you in, right? It might keep you out, but it's not going to get you in.
Right.
So releasing that tension is really, really helpful. And I think what I do is really helpful, to be quite frank. Like you can go to a million places and get a billion dope English teachers to help you write your essay. There's no shortage of those people. I think the difference is it's the stress, especially right now. Like there is when I bought, this doesn't matter, but when we moved to Howard County, like the person who sold my wife and I our house, they looked at us at the signing and they said, "Welcome to the rat race." It's just one of those phrases that just hit me. I think our students are just under so much pressure
Yeah.
and everything is evaluative. Like it just, like I can't, these 500 words will make me or break me. So I think what I do is say, these are important, but I'm not gonna let you hand in anything that's not great. And we're gonna situate this in its proper context. You're not gonna write yourself into college. So like, don't release that tension and let's really try to help them get to know you. Also, and this is super silly, we're also not going to write that boring. I thought I was I didn't know what poor really was, so I went to some poor country and I gave the kids a soccer ball, and
Oh,
now
yeah,
I
yeah,
learned, like, like that paternalistic like missionary thing. Or I was on the basketball team and we never won, and I learned to be a winner from losing.
yeah,
We've
yeah.
seen it. So there's ways to tell your story, tell your truth, and like save the other stuff for your book. So like our students, I mean, when I tell you I've worked with students who just had some of the most incredible stories, and they're like, all right, well, I was on my own when I was 6. I'm like, yeah, like hold on to that for the autobiography. This is just the college essay. So it's part of it just trying not to cram 100 pounds of stuff into a 1 pound bag, and remembering that your college essay is not your Nobel acceptance speech. This, like, if you could get into college just writing the word A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I'm with that all day. This is just a marketing piece. Let's treat it like marketing and get out the door.
No, that's a great way to. I love that, and I hope a lot of folks who read, who are watching, have children in college going age, and they can let their students know and kids know like that. This is not the thing to hang your hat on because there's so many other pieces with
Hey,
that. Go ahead.
sorry. That piece is the critical piece, right? So like, the cost of college is more expensive than ever.
Yeah.
COVID had made things even more difficult. Like life is just hard and it's stressful, and families have really firm expectations of where their kid can go to college. So I've worked with a million families, and the first thing they say is this a good school or is that a bad school? And particularly you work with 18-year-olds, and the person who's applying for college might not be the person paying for college. There is a lot of potential for conflict. So in a lot of ways, I function, yes, as a essay coach, yeah, but I'm also like a therapist, right? To kind of say like, guys, like, mom, I know you want this. Dad, I know you want that. Child, I know you want that. Child, I know you want to go to California. Parents, I know you're only paying for Maryland, and helping them kind of find that middle ground. So in a lot of ways, I kind of feel like a marriage counselor as well, which is dope. So in addition to helping out with the technical stuff, there's also that piece around just reducing the anxiety around a really anxiety provoking time, and telling students and families, this is not the definition of who you are. Like, you're going to, hopefully you'll get into some schools, hopefully you'll get rejected from schools, and because if you don't, that means you didn't apply to the most rigorous schools possible, however you define rigor, which is silly, right? So it's all about helping families know you're going to be okay, this does not define you, and let's also make a financially intelligent decision as well, because it doesn't make sense to go into a whole bunch of debt, particularly at the undergrad level.
No, that makes sense. And so, what's the conversation that you have with parents when you're working? So, in order to work with the kid, you got to work with parents too. So, what is that
Yes.
conversation? And then, what have you learned from working with parents on how our audience can better support their, maybe our audience has children going to college, and what are some
Yeah.
things that you've seen work well for parents and working with their kids?
It's funny. I always say that this work, I hope, makes me a better parent, and I hope prepares me to let go as my little girls, not so little girls, as my daughters get ready to go. I think the first thing it prepares me to do is just listen, even when it's hard, to be a great listener. I read somewhere that, and I'm gonna butcher this, so please forgive me for bastardizing this, but our children are arrows flung into the future that we can't prepare for, that we can't see. And I feel that so heavily. Our dreams aren't theirs, even though we might be called upon to finance it in part, right? But part of it is just listening to your kids and really having dialogues with them and knowing why they want things, not what they want, but why they want things. So I'll be dry and then I'll apply in a second. So what research tells me is that young men, particularly young men of color, are more likely to go to a school that did well in college basketball or football, which is a completely useless criteria, say for a few folks, right? So if your child is telling you, young man, say, I want to go to University of Alabama, whatever, it's trained me to really listen. What is it this child is asking for? And not necessarily provide or recommend that one particular school, but schools of that like, if that makes any sense. So I think that's been really, really helpful. It's trained me better, be a better listener, and really tune in with what it is that folks are looking for. I think I'm also in a season or seeing that even when it's hard, to be supportive, right? That pardon me, not saying kids, young people need your support no matter
Yeah.
what you think of their idea. And there's a time and a place to register your displeasure with whatever school or whatever thing they're doing. But I'm also learning, like, saying it in the wrong time is 100% guaranteed to push them in the direction you don't want them to go. So I've learned to be a really intentional, deliberate listener and to ask folks, why do you want that thing? So
Yeah.
right now, historically Black colleges and universities, for a bunch of amazing reasons, are super popular with my students, which is dope. Love HBCUs, went to an HBCU, love historically Black colleges and universities. And I'm learning to ask my students, what is it about that experience that you want? Because it might be able to be replicated in another institution. So, for example, if a kid says, I got to go to, I'll say Howard, whatever, and it's super dope, obviously, because they have a criminal justice major. It's amazing, but like you also might be limiting yourself if you don't think about that criteria somewhere else.
Sure.
So it's teaching me to engage in kind of both and thinking. That's really helpful, and to really, really be thoughtful listening. College counseling it's not, schools are schools, essays are essays. It's not terribly dissimilar, but it's kind of that humanizing piece that's really important. Yeah. And understanding, like, for better or worse, students really feel like this defines who they are in their experience, and be able to hold students and kind of say, no, this doesn't define you. It is high stakes, and there is no room for error. It is high stakes, but it doesn't define you. Being able to do those both ends and kind of do it with a little bit of a smile, kind of a cheekiness to it, I think that really helps a lot. I think it's easy to forget how emotional college is and how much society says your worth is tied to it when it's really not.
Yeah.
Or I would contend it's not.
Yeah, no. And so as you're, for folks who might be watching and interested in getting help from someone like yourself, talk a bit about folks doing their due diligence on college, consultants, right? So what are some things that they should be looking for when reaching out to someone to get help? And, what are some things that you would suggest that they make sure, because not everybody may work with you, but they may be looking, and you might have and know, having helped so many people, exactly what they should be looking for in a coach.
Yes. So part of it is scope, right? So what is the scope of our work together? So if someone tells you, I can get you into whatever, like, I'm nervous. Again, the language should never be a guarantee. If someone can get you into something, that makes me a little bit nervous. That might be a little bit skullduggerous. I'm not with it. But if folks are telling you, like, we're going to maximize odds, and they're letting you know, like, you will get some no's, that might be something that feels good. Being mindful of what's the scope of our work together. How much time do I get with you? Do I get 24-hour access to you, or am I limited just to this number of sessions? I'd be curious, does this person also support the financial aid process? Sometimes folks who are college coaches might not always know the most about financial aid optimization as well. So you might want to check in and see if people offer that support as well. Sometimes folks will endeavor to do the twofer, right? They'll say, well, I'm already going like a Kumon or a Mathnasium or something like that. I'm getting SAT and ACT help. Well, obviously this person also knows the college process. No, they don't. Not necessarily, right? So it's really important to keep the main thing, and make sure the person you're working with has expertise in that particular way. Obviously, you want to ask about testimonials, right? Does that person have folks you connect with? Quite frankly, there are some folks who probably have tremendous product knowledge about colleges and just aren't fun people. They're not people that your kid's going to want to get on Zoom with. Being mindful that going through the college essay, you're asking that child to do a bunch of drafts over and over and over, and really be open and honest. And I think kind of my secret sauce is I look kind of some of my kids, even though I come from a different age cohort now, but I think I get a little bit of trust. I speak a little bit of the same language that our students do as well. So I think that helps a little bit in engendering a little bit of trust, because it's critical. Particularly once you start getting to the FAFSA, your college advisor, you are pretty close with that person. They're going to know a lot about your life, about your finances, if your family's not together, who's where. And it can be a lot of pieces. If you don't have that kind of trust, or don't feel comfortable, or if that kid's not excited, or at least not unexcited about logging to that Zoom for that conversation, it's going to make it a harder road. So it's product knowledge, it's expansive services, making sure they're not going to overpromise you stuff, asking who they work with, who they're contracted with, and asking about capacity, right? So like one thing is you might want to ask about it. Do you lay hands? Do you service every student individually? Do you subcontract them out to other folks? With me, we're still at a size where I know every single student I'm contracted with, which is super dope. You might ask about, as you grow, as you get bigger, are you going to subcontract me out to other folks? That's something else important to know. Also, and this is kind of the last question is, and everybody's different. There's not better or worse.
Yeah, for sure.
Some folks will prefer to say, I'm your person from freshman year all the way through senior year. Super dope. Some folks might choose just to engage senior year. I tend to think because you're building that relationship. I think you advantage yourself if you start working with somebody starting freshman year. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with engaging somebody as a senior. Just being mindful that you're going to have a more truncated process the later on you start.
No, that makes sense. And so if people want to work with you, how do you work with students and helping them through this process? You talk about your own process.
Yeah.
How you help them.
Yeah. So the first thing, folks can go to the website, yourcollegeexpert.org. It's dope, I hope. And contact me. You'll just jump on my calendar, pick a time. From there, we will schedule an initial conversation. We'll sit down for 15, 20 minutes over Zoom just to kind of figure out what you're interested in, what speaks to you, all that great stuff. From there, we'll have, every student's different, but for your average junior, we'll probably meet 5 or 6 times over Zoom. First few sessions, again, just getting to know you sessions. It really helps me a lot to have families, parents, guardians, whoever's on the call for the first couple of sessions, because students invariably will forget things about them that are incredible that their parents will remember. And parents are also really, really good about bragging, which our students aren't always really great about. So from there, we schedule, and then from there, I become I use the term the college plug. I'm their college plug. They have my cell phone number. Anything that comes up, drop me a line, and we just get on a bunch of Zooms. We knock out essays. We do those ridiculous supplements. They are the bane of my students' existence when we get those knocked out. And we try to make it as painless as possible. We also try, a lot of my work is front loaded. So because I endeavor to have students, there's a horrible phrase, go early or go public. I think it's an awful phrase about colleges. I endeavor to have all my students apply, have everything ready before Halloween. So, if we can start grinding September, it makes September, if you start grinding in the summer, it makes September and October a lot easier. And then I celebrate. Somebody told me, I think it was Dr. Freeman Bowski, says you are defined by what you celebrate and what makes you angry. And I love that. So I'm like, it is really important to me to celebrate students, because especially in 2020, almost 23, students don't have a chance to be validated that often. And this whole process is about external validation, that you work so hard to have some people that you're never going to meet say you're good or you're not good enough. So, whether the child gets in or not is immaterial to me. I mean, it's important, obviously, but it's not the defining characteristic. But I'd like to just celebrate the heck out of them when they finish and say, you did it. I'm really proud of you.
No, I love that. So folks definitely have your website. And if you can leave a word of wisdom for a student who's considering applying to college about this process, from something that maybe that resonate with you, to past client, if you could just leave that word as we wrap up, that would be really good.
Gosh, that's fun. I think the word I would keep in mind is be bold. Be bold and don't be intimidated. Even now, I am challenging myself to be bolder, to be bigger, to be braver. In a lot of ways, I think that's my word for college students. You guys have no idea how big this world is and how many great things are in it for you, even when it doesn't always feel that way. So my word is be big, be bold, show up, and don't be afraid to take up space and be yourselves. Don't think that you have to kowtow to colleges. There is a phenomenal college for you. And this is more granular, but the U.S. News and World Report, all those ridiculous, silly rankings that put us on this hamster wheel and make us feel like we have to do things. No, there's an incredible school for you. Reject the tension that only had to go to a certain place, a good school, and be brave, be bold, and show up big. That's what I would say to folks.
I love that. So thank you so much, Dr. Vick. Folks can definitely reach out to yourcollegeexpert.org to learn more about Dr. Vick's services. I'll put you behind the scenes for a second as we wrap up. So again, thank you all so much for another episode of Done Dissertation Office Hours. I hope you have got a lot of insight just about how to leverage your expertise and really help folks, because Dr. Vick has used his research, even starting out with his dissertation on family engagement, and is still engaging families in a very different way, helping students to go to college. So make sure if you're interested in working with Dr. Vick that you go to yourcollegeexpert.org to learn more about his business. And then, as always, this episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It's a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final defense over the next 4 months. So if you're interested in learning more, you can visit www.velocitydissertation.com. And again, I want to say thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Done Dissertation Office Hours, and look forward to seeing you on another episode. Have a great evening, everybody.